Basketball's back in the Beagley Center.
And softball sweeps the weekend.
All this and more coming up on the Penguin Rundown. Welcome into the Penguin Rundown. I'm Cameron Stubbs alongside Richie Giuliano. And Richie, last week was spring break, but the sports didn't stop, did they?
No, they didn't. I mean, women's basketball had a chance here to win a Horizon League tournament game. Unfortunately, they fell short to Oakland, who was a really scrappy team in that ball game, but they're going to have an opportunity to play in a WNIT game and host the WNIT as well. But, you know, before we get into that, that's where you're going to get it started.
Yep. And following an outstanding 23-5 regular season for the women's basketball team, a loss to Oakland University in the quarterfinals of the Horizon League Championship had put their season in limbo. After receiving a first-round bye, the Penguins fell to the Golden Grizzlies on March 3rd, 63-52. Senior Lily Ritz scored 22 points and grabbed 12 rebounds, with fellow senior Chelsea Olsen behind with 18 points. Both combined to score 40 of the team's total points, as the rest of YSU shot a combined 4 for 21, with sophomore Malia Magestro unable to play with an injury. The team also struggled from the line, shooting 7 for 14. Defensively, the women had a difficult time keeping Oakland in check, as they shot over 47% from three, as well as losing the turnover battle 13-6. Here's what head coach John Barnes said about the devastating loss.
Not having Malia killed us. I mean, she's out with an injury, and what are you going to do? You know, I mean, it just killed us. I mean, she's our third leading scorer. She's probably our most aggressive player, driving, our best three-point shooter. You know, I mean, it just killed us.
Despite taking an early exit from the Horizon League Championship, the Penguins look to rewrite their season and finish with an accepted invitation in the women's NIT, as they will take on Kent State at the Beagley Center tonight at 5:30. Following a first-round loss to Robert Morris on March 1st, the men's basketball team will also look for season redemption as they accepted an invitation to the Basketball Classic. The men will also be at the Beagley Center tonight to take on Morgan State at 8 p.m. You can watch and listen to both games on 570 WKBN or ESPN+.
Last weekend, the baseball team traveled out west to take on Texas Rio Grande Valley in a 4-game series. This was the first ever meeting between the two programs, but the Vaqueros would win the series over Youngstown State. The Penguins trailed by 6 runs heading into the 6th inning in game number 1, but a 4-run sixth for the Penguins put them within 2 runs. The Vaqueros would hang on, though, to take the lead the rest of the way and took game 1 by a final of 6-4. The next day, the Gwins played a doubleheader against UTRGV. In game number 1, YSU owned a 4-1 lead heading into the 6th frame, but Rio Grande Valley scored 7 runs on 4 hits in the bottom of the 6th to take an 8-4 lead. That would be the final score in the ball game and the first of the doubleheader, as the bullpen for UTRGV would shut the door. In the nightcap in the doubleheader, the bats came alive for both squads as the Penguins and Vaqueros went back and forth, but a 5-run 6th inning pushed UTRGV to a series victory and a final of 11-8. Youngstown State's newcomers Seth Lucero and Ian Francis both hit their first collegiate home runs in the ball game, but it was not enough to win game number 3 of the series. Then on the series finale on Sunday, YSU's Matt Brodsky had a great start on the mound, tossing 7 total innings, giving up just 1 earned run while striking out 6 batters. Junior outfielder Andre Good hit a go-ahead home run for YSU in the 9th inning. Then Nathan Ball came in from the pen to get the save. The Penguins salvaged the series sweep and won Game 4 by a final of 3-2. Now moving on to this past weekend, where Youngstown State traveled to Louisiana to take on the University of New Orleans in another 4-game series. On Friday afternoon, the Penguins trailed by 5 runs heading into the 8th inning, but a 6-run 8th frame on 7 hits gave the Penguins the lead. Senior catcher Dylan Swimmer had 2 hits in the inning alone while knocking in the go-ahead RBI single, giving Youngstown State a series opening victory of 6-5. Here's what head coach Dan Bertolini had to say about the comeback victory in New Orleans.
You know, we were like on the ropes. We were like the boxer, was just kind of hanging on, and you know, it just took, you know, one really good barrel, and the next barrel, Dylan Schwarmer was incredible today. I think he had 4 hits, big hits for us. And I think that hopefully will spark our offense to move forward. I think we finished with 10 hits, 6 runs in that inning. It says a lot about this group and their toughness and their ability to play through adversity.
In Game 1 of Saturday's doubleheader, Youngstown State was down by 1 run in the 9th inning until a game-tying RBI single off the bench from Dominic Bucco forced extra frames. In the 10th inning, Lucas Nasani hit a 2 RBI single with 2 outs to put Youngstown State on top 7-5. The game seemed to be over until the Privateers had a 10th inning rally and 9-hitter Tyler Bischke hit a walk-off 2 RBI single up the middle to stun the Penguins by a final of 8-7. In the nightcap of the doubleheader, Youngstown State would bounce back with a brilliant performance on the mound from Travis Perry as he threw 7 innings, struck out 4 guys, and only allowed 1 earned run. The offense had 11 hits in the ballgame to help them score 3 runs to squeeze away a 1-run, 3-2 victory. And then we move over to the series finale on Sunday, where it was a battle of the arms on both sides as both pitchers went the distance in the ballgame. New Orleans starter Colin Horton had 16 strikeouts, which was just 1 away from tying their program record. He only allowed 1 hit in the ballgame, and it came with 2 outs in the top half of the 9th inning. Broski was just as good, though, on the opposite side, throwing 8 2/3 of an inning, giving up only 4 hits while striking out a career-high 10 batters. The Penguins were 1 out away from forcing extras until Anthony Herron Jr. hit a walk-off solo home run in the 9th inning. That would win the ball game for the Privateers by a final of 1-0. Up next, the Penguins play Pitt this afternoon at 3 o'clock. You can catch that game on the ACC network.
The softball team has stayed busy the last 2 weeks, as in the first weekend of March, the Penguins competed at the 2022 Scotsman Invitational. YSU's first game was against the St. Peter's Peacocks, losing 4-1. In the game, senior Yasmin Romero became the 6th Penguin to record 200 career hits in school history. Later in the day, the Penguins played against the Presbyterian Blue Hosts and dropped this game 1-0. Senior Ellie Buffenbarger had a strong game with 9 strikeouts and allowing only 3 hits, but 1 run in the bottom of the 7th gave Presbyterian the win. The Penguins bounced back the next day with a win against St. Peter's. Romero went 3 for 4, while senior Nikki Sabini picked up 2 RBIs in a 4-3 victory against the Peacocks. Buffenbarger threw a complete game while striking out 6. The Penguins unfortunately did not finish the Invitational on a high note, as they dropped the last game of the weekend to Presbyterian 4-0. It would be an off game, as the Penguins only collected 4 hits as a team and struck out 10 times. Following the Invitational, the Penguins played the South Carolina Gamecocks on Tuesday the 8th, falling short in the end 12-7. Junior Megan Turner showed off the power, going 2 for 2 with a 2-run home run. The game went back and forth through the first 4 innings, but the Gamecocks were able to put up 5 runs in the 5th inning to put the game out of reach. Buffenbarger made school history in the game, becoming the first YSU Penguin and just the 7th pitcher in Horizon League history to reach 600 career strikeouts. Buffenbarger is currently sits at 607 as of Monday. After the trip south, the Penguins had their home opener and opened the Horizon League play against Detroit Mercy in a 3-game series. The Penguins began the series with a doubleheader Thursday, picking up wins in both matchups. In the 8-6 victory, junior Avery Schumacher hit a bases-clearing double to put the Penguins up early 3-0. Then Turner hit her 3rd home run of the season, a 3-run shot, to give the Penguins some insurance runs late in the game. Senior Kayla Rutherford earned her first save of the season to secure a series-opening win. During the nightcap against the Titans, the Penguins came out on top again with a final score of 3-1. Freshman Bree Kohler put on a pitching clinic this game as she quieted the Titans' bats with a complete game while picking up 4 strikeouts to earn her 2nd win of the season. YSU looked to finish the series with a sweep on Friday after sending sophomore Sophie Howell to the mound. Despite only scoring 2 runs in the game, it was all the Penguins needed to get the dub, 2-1. Junior Conchetta Rinaldi supplied the offense with 2 RBIs in the 1st inning. Here's what head coach Brian Campbell had to say about the opening Horizon League series.
Well, I think you got 3 different games, 3 different ways of winning. You know, the first one was a little bit more offensively as a game. The second one kind of went back and forth just a little bit there with the 3-1, and then you know, Sophie coming out and us, you know, her pitching, you know, really well in 7 innings, and you know, getting the 2-1 ball game, the close one there at the end of it.
The Penguins continued their season yesterday with a doubleheader against the Akron Zips. You can visit ysusports.com for the results of that game. Coming up this weekend, they will continue conference play on the road against the UIC Flames. For more on the softball team, let's send it over to Katie and Kyle at the roundtable.
Thanks, guys. Welcome into this week's edition of Roundtable. Kyle Wills, I'm Katie Rogers-Adela. This week we're going to be talking up some YSU softball. Now, the softball team didn't start off too hot this year, but man, offensively this past weekend we played phenomenal. Now, the first 2 people I want to talk about are our catcher Conchetta Rinaldi and our third baseman Nikki Sabini. What have you seen so far from them this season?
Well, those 2 have been our top 2 run producers on the year so far. Conchetta is first in the team with 17 RBIs, while Nikki is right behind her with 15. But Conchetta is batting .375 this season with 6 doubles, 2 home runs, with an amazing .563 slugging percentage. Then you have Sabini, who's batting .300, 4 doubles, a triple, and having that pop from those 2 in the lineup is definitely great. And then when you add Yasmin Romero at the top of the lineup,
Yes.
She's leading the team with a .397 average. She's got 29 hits, 3 doubles, and leads the team with a .421 on-base percentage. So to be able to have her at the top of the lineup to get on base consistently, and having Rinaldi and Sabini there to drive her in, it's definitely some weapons you'd love to have in that lineup.
I agree, and I feel like another offensive weapon we have to talk about is the freshman that we picked up last year, Bree Kohler. She's a great 2-way player. She bats and she pitches, but for the batting part, she's hitting just under .300. She has a couple extra base hits, and she has 14 hits. So she's really been a great contributor to the offense of YSU softball this year. And as for her pitching, she's similar to Maddie Lusk from last year. Out of her 7 appearances so far, she's started 5 of them, and in most of those games, she's pitched almost all of those innings. So, and she's just from nearby South Range High School, who got runner-up in states last year, so she's obviously a really great pitcher. She struck out over 600 batters in her career, and as we know, Ellie Buffenbarger, our own YSU pitcher, just struck that milestone not too long ago. So I feel like Bree Kohler is definitely more than capable of advancing and improving as the years come to her and as she keeps going on in her collegiate career in YSU softball. Now, as I was talking about pitching, let's go on to our pitching rotations. What have you seen that's been relatively similar or different in last year's rotation compared to this year's rotation?
Well, the rotation from a season ago was a strength for the team as well as this year. They have 3 of their returning pitchers in Ellie Buffenbarger, Sophie Howell, and Kayla Rutherford. Buffenbarger is the ace of the team once again. She's made 13 appearances to lead the team. She has a .322 ERA in 63 innings pitched and has an unbelievable 9.67 Ks per 7 innings. Then you have Sophie Howell, who is second in the team in appearances with 8. She looks to continue on from her brilliant freshman season just a year ago. She's got a 3.12 ERA in 33 2/3 innings pitched, and also has a K per 7 ratio up there with 8.52. So being able to have that on top of Bree Kohler, and then having Kayla Rutherford at the back end of the bullpen. Yeah. She only made 2 appearances last season with an injury, but has already made 5 this season, and she's looking to show how dominant she can be with that 1.17 ERA. So being able to have this rotation this season and having as a strength last year as well, and be able to have those returners come back, it's definitely a big plus for this team.
I agree. I'm really excited for YSU pitching. You know, we have Bree Kohler, we have hopefully the rest of her collegiate career, and then we have Ellie at the end of her career. I can't wait to see what happens on the pitching and the batting side, because we're looking really good this year so far. And the last thing I want to talk about, as I said earlier, YSU didn't start off the season so hot. We're not the best team on the road, but we've been knocking it out of the park. I mean, last weekend, we swept Detroit Mercy on our first series of Horizon League play, and they were just really great games. What did you see differently in the losses that we played in South Carolina compared to the sweep against Detroit Mercy?
Well, in those 5 games in South Carolina, Katie, we only were able to come out with 1 victory, which I know they're expecting much more from this team. I think one of the reasons why they struggled so much because they left so many runners on base.
Yes.
In those 5 games, they left 37 runners on base. They struck out 36 times. They had 34 hits, which was good enough for a .262 average, which isn't terrible, but I'm sure they'd like to see a better average from this team. On the pitching side of things, they gave up a lot of hits. They gave up double-digit hits in 2 of the 5 games. They gave up 7 and 8 in the other 2. But they were able to manage to turn that around when they came home to face Detroit Mercy. They left 7, 5, and 6 in those 3 games on base, and then we're giving up far less hits. They gave up 9 in game 1, which I know they'd like to see that dip a little bit, but they were able to rebound in game 2 and 3 with only allowing 6 and 3 hits. So being able to come back and be able to regroup the way that they did, being able to limit those hits and leave less on base. They also struck out far less times too. They struck out 11 times total in 3 games. So that's about a third of the games with 2 less games. But I mean, I'd still be able to cut those strikeouts down. So it's definitely a far more successful weekend from last weekend to this past weekend.
Yes, I agree. And hopefully what you mentioned, they can improve on it and work on it, because this weekend we got a big matchup too. We have a series against UIC, the reigning Horizon League champs that beat us in our home field last year. But UIC isn't starting out their season so great either. But it's going to be one heck of a series, and I can't wait to watch it.
Yeah, with the team being the regular season Horizon League champions last year, not being able to have that title that UIC has, I think they're looking for some revenge come this week. So I'm looking forward to that matchup.
Yeah, me too. All right, that'll just about do it for us here at the Roundtable, talking up some YSU softball. Good luck to softball this weekend against UIC. Kyle Wolves, I'm Katie Rogers-Videla. We're going to send it back to our hosts.
Thanks, guys. Well, we move on to some women's golf, as the members of the women's golf team this past weekend traveled to West Georgia in Utah to take on the Pizza Hut Lady Thunderbird Invitational. Senior Tori Utrup, junior Danae Rugola, and freshman Lizzie Sauer all competed individually for Youngstown State. Following 54 holes and 3 complete days of golf, Rugola led the Penguins with a 3-round score of 226. She finished and tied in 12th overall, which became her 4th top 15th placement of the season. Following Regula was Sauer, who tied for 27th with a score of 231, where she finished with a score of 77 in all 3 days of play. Lastly, for the Penguins, Utrup, who tied for 89th place with a score of 250. This Friday, the women's golf team will not be traveling far as they head to southwestern Ohio and compete against Northern Kentucky. Then next Monday and Tuesday, the team will cross the Kentucky border and participate in the Neville Meade Collegiate.
Now, the men's golf team was also on the road, but traveled south to Georgia to compete in the Sea Palms Invitational. Out of the 19 teams that took part in the Invitational, Youngstown State fell towards the bottom of the placements, finishing 16th overall. Leading the Penguins individually was senior Brian Corduple, who tied for 31st place with a 3-round score of 222. Not far behind him was fellow senior Kevin Schur, who tied for 38th place with a 3-round score of 223. YSU endured tough competition as golfers from the top 5 universities finished with nearly 30 less strokes than the Penguins. Finishing in first place at the Invitational was the Wright State Raiders, who swept both individual scores with a 205 and overall scores with an 866. The men's golf team will head back on the road next week, competing in the Butler Springs Invitational in Indianapolis, Indiana. For live stats and results, check out ysusports.com.
The women's lacrosse team was able to come out on top against the University of Akron on Thursday, March 3rd, defeating the Zips 12-11. Sophomore midfielder Jordan Miller was able to find the back of the net with 59 seconds left in overtime to lift the Penguins to their first conference victory of the season. The YSU offensive attack was led by graduate student and midfielder Allie Corinne, as she netted a game-high 4 goals on 7 attempts. Natalie Calandra-Ryan tallied her 5th multi-goal performance in as many as 6 career games, scoring at least 3 goals for the 3rd time this season. The team then traveled to Rock Hill, South Carolina on Tuesday, March 8th to face off against Winthrop University, where they dropped the bout 18-14. Despite the loss, freshman attacker Sydney Bumstead, sophomore attacker Aaron Clark, and Calandra-Ryan each had a multi-goal performance. In the cage for the Penguins, both sophomore Michaela Sorenko and graduate student Savannah Clark combined for 11 saves across 33 shots attempted by the Eagles. This past weekend on Saturday, the Penguins took on the Detroit Mercy Titans at the Watts, defeating the Titans by a final of 12-11. Aaron Clark was the pivotal difference maker as she found the back of the net 3 times. Bumstead, Calandra-Ryan, and Lauren Ottensmeyer put up a pair of goals to lead the Penguins to victory. The women's lacrosse team is back in action on the road as they face off against Kent State University tomorrow at 6 p.m.
The women's tennis team competed against Buffalo State Thursday. March 3rd and scored a win, then traveled to California over spring break and took 3 consecutive losses. In their match against Buffalo State Bulls, the Gwens took a win, giving the Bulls their first home loss of the season. They came out successful in the doubles at number 2 and number 3. Cecilia Rosas came out on top in the singles matches at number 1. Aliska Masarikova took the win at number 2 and number 3. Julia Marco won, and Elisa Rigazio won number 5. In the match against the Fullerton Titans last Wednesday, the Gwens fought hard, but in the end, they weren't able to succeed. The Gwens got the point in the doubles, but lost all 6 singles competitions in the doubles. In the doubles, Marco and Rosas won number 1, and Rigazio and Masarikova won at number 3. In the match against Cal State on Thursday, the Gwens once again would fall in singles. Rosas, Rigazio, and Marco scored wins for the Gwens, but YSU were unsuccessful in the doubles competition. On Friday, YSU took its 3rd and final loss of the week in a match against Long Beach State. Marco took a win in the singles at number 3 as Youngstown State lost the other 5 single competitions. The Gwens also dropped the doubles point. Next Friday, they will host a game against Duquesne at 3 p.m.
This past Tuesday, the men's tennis team traveled to Florida to play the North Florida Ospreys, where they ultimately lost by an overall 6-1 decision. Freshman Clement Manguy claimed the only Penguin victory that night as he won in singles competition at number 4 in straight sets. The Gwens also dropped a pair of 3-set contests at number 1, number 2, and number 5 as junior Laurentiu Mondicescu, senior Eric Gran, and freshman Javier Pla all fell in 3 sets. The Ospreys won the doubles point with victories at number 2 and number 3. This past Wednesday, Youngstown State was set to play the University of Stetson, but weather forced it to be canceled. Up next for the Penguins, they travel back home this Friday to take on the Georgetown Hoyas. First serve at the Indoor Tennis Center is set for 11 a.m.
The men and women's swim and dive team had a busy week over spring break, starting with the men participating in the Ohio State Last Chance meet on Sunday the 6th. The 400-yard medley relay involved sophomores Soma Albert, Jasper Likens, and freshman Aleska Radinovich and junior Wilson Cannon as they finished with a time of 3 minutes and 21.39 seconds. Albert led the way in the 200-yard backstroke with a time of 1 minute and 46.57 seconds. Next, the men traveled to Elkhart, Indiana to compete in the CSCAA National Invitational Championships. 4 school records were broken this weekend as Radinovich shattering 2 of them. He broke 2 of his own school records with a 4th place 1 minute and 45.57 second time in his 100-yard butterfly and 47.49 second time in the 200 fly. Sophomore Gavin Webb finished 5th in the 1,000-yard freestyle with a time of 9 minutes and 17.83 seconds, while Albert finished 7th in the 200-yard backstroke with a 1 minute and 46.16 second time. To end the week, senior Kayla Rasman competed in the 1-meter diving event at the NCAA Zone C Diving Championships. Her trip to Ann Arbor saw her post a 216.60 score to finish 53rd in the event. Congrats to all the swimmers and divers on their performances this season.
It's now time for our Penguin Play of the Week, and we're going to send it over to Caleb Ellison, who has more.
Thank you very much. Caleb Ellison here with this week's Penguin Play of the Week. It's going to be Sarah Bader, senior outfielder on the softball team. Let's take a look at what happened. So as you can see here, 7th inning, and it's a drive down the opposite way, and all the way from left field, Bader dives out to make the catch in foul territory and gets the second out of the inning. We get another look here, slow motion, completely goes into the splits, belly flop on the turf, and secures the catch right in the pocket of the glove. The Penguins would go on to win this game and complete the sweep in the series. Congratulations to Sarah on your amazing play. Good luck on the rest of your season. Cameron and Richie, back to you guys.
Thank you, Caleb. Well, that'll wrap it up here on the Penguin Rundown. For news, highlights, and more of Youngstown State Athletics, be sure to check out YSUsports.com. And you could also follow us on social media on Instagram and Twitter at Penguin Rundown 1. I'm Richie Giuliano.
I'm Cameron Stubbs.
We'll see you next week, Penguin Nation.